Senthil Partner, Lacia Director from our Corporate Reporting Services practice here at PwC Singapore. Thank you so much for joining me.
Happy to be here.
Likewise.
So for many businesses, it's corporate reporting season, and you know what that means. It's rushing through to make sure all of our key accomplishments are captured in the financial statements. So we'll start with you, Senthil. What do you think are some of the biggest challenges that companies are facing with corporate reporting, and how are they tackling these changes?
The way businesses are operating and what drives success has changed dramatically over the past few years. In addition to all the regulatory reporting that a company has to comply with, they've also got to ensure that whatever key risk that their businesses face and the value that they add ultimately to their different stakeholders needs to be disclosed quite effectively, I should say. This is where I feel that a good annual report comes into play. An effective annual report must be grounded in transparency and offer perspectives that weave together a concise and compelling narrative.
Reporting isn't just about compliance, it's also about delivering on stakeholders' expectations.
Yes.
We are talking about more relevant, more reliable, and timelier reporting. Businesses who can keep abreast of all the changes and communicate them will effectively earn trust.
Maybe that's a good segue into our annual disclosures this year. So we've just published our 2023 Illustrative Annual Report that highlights some of the most important disclosure changes. Lacia, can you just take us through some of the key highlights for this year?
Here are some of the game changers. 1. Sustainability reporting. 2. IFRS I-70 insurance contracts. And of course, BEPS Pillar 2. I'll start with the area that many of our clients have been asking us on, which is around sustainability reporting. So in recent years, there's been so much guidance, standards and framework issued on sustainability reporting, and businesses have really been struggling with keeping up with all these challenges. A big milestone was achieved in June this year when the International Sustainability Standard Board, known as ISSB, released their first two sustainability reporting standards, which is IFRS S1 and IFRS S2. One is on general requirements and the other is on climate-related disclosures. These are effective for annual periods beginning on or after 1st January 2024. And right here in Singapore, there is a recent public consultation to seek feedback on mandating ISSB aligned climate-related disclosures for all issuers as well as the large private companies. So the feedback is actually recently over on 30th September, and regulators will then consider the feedback received with an aim to finalize these recommendations by 2024. So I'm really excited to see the future developments for Singapore in this space.
Great. One of the biggest challenges that we had was there was so much guidance from all the different regulators, so I'm glad that there's actually finally some consolidated guidance being issued as well. So what do you think will be the most challenging part?
Figuring out what information is most relevant and to whom is challenging, and early engagement with both internal and external stakeholders on what they find meaningful will be important. In addition, timely communication between different functions within an organization can also be a success factor, as there are connections between sustainability reporting and financial reporting, and entities should ensure both are aligned and are consistent.
So another topic that will be making its debut this year, Senthil, is IFRS 17. Possibly one of your favorite standards of all time, and you can talk for hours about it. So can you just walk us through one of the main punchlines for the standard?
IASB has been cooking this up for a while. And guess what? It's just not insurers who are feeling the heat. Non-insurers need to watch out too. At the very first time, the corporates are spending a significant amount of their time to ensure that they don't fall within the scope of the standard, right? For the very fact that they just don't want to get into the complexities of measuring a contract under IFRS 17, because they know that their friends who are in insurance companies haven't slept for ages. Since the dawn of IASB, there hasn't been a single standard to account for insurance liabilities, right? And can you imagine that this is the very first time you have a standard that most of the insurance companies have to apply the standard to account for their liabilities, but not only them, even the corporates. For example, a client of mine, so they had a fixed service fee contract for maintenance contract, wherein they're obliged to repair a specific equipment once it malfunctions. right? Typically, you might think that it is just a normal warranty contract. You got to apply it under IFRS 15, but once we had a deep dive into the terms and conditions of that particular contract, unfortunately, they fall within the ambit of IFRS 17, and that was a huge exercise for them.
Okay. That's really helpful. So I think really what the punchline is all companies, whether you're insurers or not, really need to do the homework and go through the exercise of determining whether contracts are in the scope or out of scope of IFRS 17. So even if it's not particularly material for them, they need to think about the disclosure requirements that come with the new standard as well. Is that right?
Absolutely.
So do we have any resources for companies out there that are trying to figure out what is in scope and out of scope of IFRS 17 and what the new disclosure requirements might be?
We have actually included an appendix for non-insurers which would act as a cheat sheet to go about the disclosures under IFRS 17 for some of the contracts.
So let's move on to the last key area of change, which is BEPS, or Base Erosion and Profit Shifting. Now, I understand it's the OECD's project that they've been building over the years to ensure that large multinational companies are paying a minimum of 15% taxes on excess profits. Can you take me through a couple of those sound bites?
Clock is actually ticking when it comes to implementation of Pillar 2 taxes. And to all the accountants out there, I should say that your jobs are guaranteed for the next few years, right? Singapore has announced that they will implement the new domestic top-up tax with respect to in-scope M&Es for annual periods beginning on and after 1st of Jan 2025. Amendments have been introduced to the accounting standard IAS 12, introducing temporary relief for companies to calculate deferred tax implications arising from Pillar 2 taxes. As I said, this is only a temporary relief. Finance teams should not sit back and relax. They have to collect a significant amount of data. Even though there may be no impact to financial reporting now, finance teams should get a head start on the changes that will be coming up. You can find the impact of BEPS disclosures in our illustratives.
All right, well, thank you so much, both of you, for taking us through all of these disclosures and insights. Really appreciate it. Now, in 2023, we've published 2 versions of the Illustrative Annual Report. And the new version provides an alternative presentation structure which categorizes material information in a way that helps users of the financial statements understand the key risks and performances of the entity. Now, check out this year's Illustrative Annual Report for a deeper dive into that. To our listeners out there, thank you for tuning in. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out or connect with us on LinkedIn. Take care.